We're less than 2 months away from Russia's presidential election, where Vladimir Putin will attempt to further tighten his grip on leadership by seeking a fifth term as leader. Why does Russia's 2024 election matter? Let's turn to Professor Joel Atkinson. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, good morning. It's nice to be here.
Thanks for joining us. Russian President Vladimir Putin's decision to run for the upcoming election in March was no surprise. Do you think Putin securing yet another term will also be a predictable one?
Yes, Putin announced in December that he would seek a fifth presidential term in the upcoming March elections. In reality, the extent to which Putin has come to dominate the political system and the media in Russia over the past 2 decades means that, this very terminology, the very words elections, running and winning, don't really mean what they normally do. So yes, the result is a predictable one. Putin is going to win. But winning is not the only reason for the election. They are a way for Putin to legitimize his decision to invade Ukraine. He can show the people and the soldiers and their families want him to serve another term. He can show through the votes that the country is behind him. It also sends a message of calm and normalcy to the Russian people, a sign of life that life goes on as normal. And importantly, he can show the elites that he relies on to remain in power that he is very much still in control. And it also serves that function of forcing governors and others to show that the Kremlin that they're in total control of their regions. So any disruption around the elections will be taken as a sign of their unfitness to stay in office. It also reminds those governors that they're dependent on Putin for their positions. So the elections are an important ritual in the Russian political system.
Definitely. Putin running for another term is in line with him signing back in 2021 that would allow him to continue in office until 2036, right?
Yeah, that's right. So for him, the main challenge is not winning. The main challenge for him is to get a high turnout rate, to have many people to actually make the effort to get out and vote. So for leaders like Putin, without any realistic competition from other candidates, the main challenger is actually himself from previous elections. So Putin needs to match or beat his own results to maintain that winning image. So in the 2018 elections, Putin got 76.7% of the vote with a 67.5% turnout. And so now both of those records have to be beaten. And because Putin has been so successful in eliminating any threats to his rule, because his winning is so inevitable, this makes it a challenge to convince people to bother voting. So his regime will make efforts to boost turnout. They'll hand out prizes, ask employers to ensure staff vote, give voters 3 days off to cast their ballots, 3 days time span to cast their ballots. They'll bus people to the polls and so on. And of course, the other issue is his age. He's now 71 years old and he won't be able to stay in power forever.
Right. Professor Atkinson, still, we have to go over his contenders, although it is fair to say they're not going to be much of a threat to Putin.
Yeah, so that's his problem, is his contenders are too little a threat. 2 well-known senior politicians have declined to run, and that will delegitimize the election somewhat and make it harder to get that high turnout. There are currently something like 3 nominees and presumably more to come. But none of those approved nominees are running on an anti-Ukraine war platform and are not very exciting to voters. The one interesting contender is Nadezhdin. He's opposed to the war in Ukraine, and he's in the process of getting the required numbers of signatures, which at least in theory would enable him to register. Whether or not he will be able to do that remains to be seen. There was another former regional legislator and a journalist who also was running on an anti-war platform, who was rejected last December. So, but the number of people willing to put their signature under his name kind of indicates some of that unhappiness with the Ukraine war.
Right. Professor Atkinson, you mentioned if Putin does win, his aggression on Ukraine will be worsened. But what about the situation here on the Korean Peninsula? Will he further deepen Moscow's ties with Pyongyang?
Yeah, so the relationship between North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and Putin is clearly trending towards increased cooperation. Some even predict we're headed for even a formal military alliance between the two. That's probably not realistic, but it's true that Russia is using North Korean armaments, including ballistic missiles, to assist with its war effort. North Korea is very interested in Russia's expertise in military and aerospace technology. And Kim visited Russia last month or last year, and North Korea is currently talking out the prospects of Putin reciprocating that visit. And this would be important. The only visit any Russian president has made to North Korea was when Putin visited all the way back in 2002. In contrast, North Korean leaders have made official trips to Russia 14 times, and Russian leaders have visited South Korea about 6 times or so.
Right. All right, Professor Atkinson, thank you so much for your insight this morning. You have a great day.
Thank you.